Kenpachi, the name feared by many even among gods of death. It is a title that is given only to the strongest of Shinigami of a generation, meaning that there can only be one Kenpachi. The one who is worthy enough to hold this title leads the 11th Division as their captain, and has their name carved in the history of the Soul Society. Each Kenpachi we know of is an absolute monster, but who is the strongest one? Well, as you guys can tell by the title of the video, I will be ranking every Kenpachi from weakest to strongest. But before we do that, if you guys love Bleach and want to help support the channel, then please hit that subscribe button. We actually are getting close to 1,000 subs, and I've really been thinking about doing a collab with another Bleach YouTuber, so if you guys have an idea on who I should collab with, then just tell me in the comments below. Also, the Discord will be linked in the description below. Now with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Starting off the list at number 5 is the 10th Kenpachi, Kiganjo. Kiganjo is the Kenpachi we know very little about, but we do know that he lost his title of Kenpachi about half a century ago to Zaraki. It was said that it wasn't much of a battle because Zaraki ended the fight in one slash. Tosin, one of the captains watching the fight, even called Kenpachi a demon because he couldn't believe his power. Something to keep in mind is that this Kenpachi that Kiganjo faces is arguably one of Zaraki's strongest forms. He doesn't wear his eye patch, which probably restricts his power by around 80%. This makes sense because the eye patch was made by the Soul Society, just like the Genjei Kaijo, which restricts captains and lieutenants' power by 80%. I'm sure they had the same idea in mind when making Kenpachi's eye patch, and it's possible that they even amped the restriction even higher because of Kenpachi's crazy power. So my point is that Kiganjo lost to one of the stronger forms of Zaraki, who wasn't even restricting his powers yet until he got his eye patch, though he probably was already mentally restricting himself in battle. It's just something I thought I'd like to bring up because I don't want people thinking that Kiganjo got one-shotted by a Soul Society level Zaraki that barely beat Shikai Ichigo. Kiganjo probably was a monster and kinda had to be to hold the title of Kenpachi. So a little fun fact if you guys are haters of the Bount arc, which I'm pretty sure everyone is, Kiganjo is actually the guy Maki Ichinose was trying to avenge after Zaraki killed him. We know that under Kiganjo's rules is when Squad 11 started to get its bad rap as a squad full of mindless thugs. So it would have been really nice to know more about him and his power. Coming in at number 4, I have the 7th Kenpachi, Kuryoshiki, who was one of the greatest Kenpachis in history. He was famously known to make the Mask of Hollow shake because of his terrifying Ryatsu, and he was able to protect and hold his title as Kenpachi for centuries. Kuryoshiki was so impressive in fact that he was invited to join the Zero Division, but he declined the offer because he didn't want to be the guy to wait around for the enemy to come fight him. His invite to the Royal Guard isn't something that should be overlooked. As you guys know, to be a member of the Royal Guard, you have to not only have incredible strength, but you had to have created something in the Soul Society. Ichibei created all the names of everything in the Soul Society, while Nimaya created the Zanpakutos. So what did Kuryoshiki contribute to the Soul Society? It is not known what he created in the Soul Society, so maybe it was his strength that got the attention of the Zero Squad. And considering what his Zanpakuto can do, it would be no surprise. His Zanpakuto is a living creature type Zanpakuto, just like Unohana and little girl Yachiru. Living creature type Zanpakutos are a cool idea that Kubo really should explore more of. Imagine having a sword release of a dragon that spits fire or a bird that shoots lightning. It would just be so cool. Anyway, the name of the Shikai is called Gakaku Kairo, and it summons 13 big white balls that have no eyes, no ears, no limbs, just giant teeth. They're like literally giant balls of teeth. They're called white monsters that are the size of a bear. So pretty terrifying if you ask me. 13 balls the size of bears that only have fangs. The strength of these white monsters isn't really known other than that they are strong enough to keep people from interfering in Kuryoshiki's fight. But I bet the bite force of these things would kill someone. His Bankai was never used, but we do know what it does. It's so powerful that Azashiro says himself that he may have lost if Kuryoshiki had immediately released his Bankai, and it makes sense why. When he releases his Bankai, an enormous jaw with large fangs comes up from the ground and devours everything in its path. Friend or foe, living or non-living, it eats everything except Kuryoshiki himself. Since his Bankai doesn't discriminate, it actually was banned by Central 46, keeping him from using it in the Serete. A major drawback is that if Kuryoshiki ever got a chance to actually use his Bankai, he can't use it again for 6 months. This is probably because of how broken it is, and it definitely is a Bankai that fits a guy who was believed to be one of the strongest Kenpachis ever. During this fight with Azashiro, Azashiro knew he wouldn't be able to cut him because of Kuryoshiki's vast amounts of Ryatsu, kinda like how Ichigo couldn't cut Zaraki in the Soul Society. He does end up losing the fight against Azashiro because Azashiro destroys Kuryoshiki's insides, killing him pretty fast. Kuryoshiki was obviously stronger, but Azashiro's hacks was way too much for him. He also was quite bloodthirsty for battle, and this is shown when he tried to go after Avaste Lorde before the crack in the sky closed. Kuryoshiki seemed cool as hell, and I wish we got more information on him so that I could place him higher. You might think that he should automatically be the number 1 or number 2 spot on this list solely due to because of his Bankai and his invite to the Royal Guard, but I personally find the others above him to be a lot more impressive. Unohana. Man oh man, Kubo really knows how to write a badass female character. Unohana Yachiru, the first Kenpachi, is number 3 on the list, and out of everybody on this list, I do think she is the most terrifying. Before she became the kind-hearted and lovable captain we all know her as, she was at one point Soul Society's most dangerous and notorious criminal. Yamamoto at the time respected her strength so much that instead of dealing with her, he decided to recruit her to be a part of the first generation of the Gote 13, which was also regarded as the strongest generation in history. During this time, she actually went looking for opponents throughout the Rikongai because she couldn't find anyone that could satisfy her in battle. During this time, Unohana masters the healing arts so that she could prolong her fights, and she was so damn good at this that she was able to kill Kenpachi and bring him back hundreds of times while having him thinking he was only losing consciousness. Unohana was in a class of her own and overwhelmed Kenpachi to the point to where he actually started crying because he thought he was going to die and not have been able to enjoy fighting her anymore. And she even calls him weak. Now you're probably thinking weak, there's no way Kenpachi of all people is weak. The guy who took on the strongest Espada and bodied 3 Sternritter with ease when the other captains were having trouble fighting just one. I truly think this just shows how much of a monster Unohana is. She also claims to be the strongest in the Soul Society aside from Zaraki. Now, I'm not sure how true her statement is, but it could be a self-proclaimed title, just like how Noritora says he's the strongest Espada. I personally feel like Shunsui is still stronger than her, but it definitely could be argued. Unohana's Bankai, Minazuki, is a very debatable and interesting topic. It was never confirmed, but it's implied that her Bankai is like acid, basically the opposite of what her Shikai can do. Her Shikai heals, and her Bankai is a very potent acid that melts away the body to the bone. It's just speculation, but I like to think that it is her Bankai ability, and if it is, then I definitely think that this would probably put her above Shunsui. You're probably asking, why does all of this make Unohana above Kuryoshiki? Well, Unohana not only has incredible feats, but she also has statements that I think would put her above him. The only thing impressive about Kuryoshiki is his OP Bankai that he can't even really use if any allies are around. And also the fact that he was invited to Zero Squad even though we don't know the true reason why he was invited. Even at number 3 on the list, Unohana shouldn't be underestimated, and she still is stronger than most captains in the current story. Alright, Soya Azashiro is our number 2 on the list, and this man literally embodies the words overpowered and hacks. He is a monster, but not a monster in the way Kenpachi, Zaraki, and Unohana are. It is said that without his Zanpakuto, Azashiro would be beaten by a random person of the Rikongai. So, what is it that makes Azashiro so deadly? It's because of his Zanpakuto named Urazukuro, and it's quite an interesting Zanpakuto because it's always in Bankai state. In Bankai, Azashiro confused with anything, living or non-living. He confused with buildings or objects and even people. This ability is called Seitai Yugo, and if he is ever in a bad situation or he knows that he is about to take damage, he can use this power to fuse with the air itself so that he will be immune to any physical harm. He can also use this ability to fuse with his opponents and destroy their insides by attacking their organs and muscles. This seems to be the most powerful attack he has, and he actually uses this to kill Kuroyoshiki. His power was so much of a threat that during his time of trying to eradicate all hollows, he took out many Soul Reapers and even some captains. He actually caught the attention of the Zero Division, who had to personally come down to stop him. He also fought on par with and could have killed a pre-Muken trained Kenpachi, and I'll explain why he could have later on. Using his ability Utsutsu, Azashiro was able to copy his hands and mouths hundreds of times, and he was able to use them to fire hundreds of the Kido Hado 96 Itu Katsu, the same Hado that Yamamoto used against Aizen, and just one was able to wound Aizen. Azashiro was able to use hundreds of these against Kenpachi, wounding him pretty good. If this had been anyone else other than Kenpachi, they probably would have died. Now, the reason why Azashiro could have killed Kenpachi in their first fight is because Azashiro never went all out, and he allowed Kenpachi to grow significantly stronger in just a short amount of time, a little over an hour to be exact. When Azashiro fights Kenpachi for the second time, he notices Kenpachi's Ryatsu has increased to insane amounts after his fight with Sion Grants. This made Azashiro remember back to what Aizen had told him about Kenpachi and why Aizen avoided fighting him because of his growing strength after each near-death battle he has. If Azashiro had gone all out from the beginning, he may have killed Kenpachi, but in not doing so allowed Kenpachi to adjust and release more and more spiritual pressure. Something I feel like I should explain is how important your vital organs are. Ukiura had instant regeneration, but he couldn't regenerate any major organs. When Full Hollow Ichigo destroyed half of Ukiura's body, Ukiura did regenerate his body, but he ended up dying anyway because his organs were destroyed in the process. Even Noritora, who is said to have the hardest skin, said himself that if Kenpachi stabbed him through his eye, Noritora would have died. Unless you're some godly being, getting your organs destroyed would kill you, and you can't do something like train to build up your organs like you can do with your body. Unohana was able to kill a stronger Kenpachi than Azashiro with ease hundreds of times, and some people say that because this Unohana was stronger than this Kenpachi, the ability of Azashiro destroying your insides won't work on her, but I just don't think that's very true. Azashiro was able to kill Kuroyoshiki, who was far stronger than him. Azashiro knew he couldn't cut Kuroshiki's body because of his immense spiritual pressure, so he decided to destroy his insides. So tell me why Kuroshiki, someone who was known for his spiritual pressure, someone who could make the massive hollow shake, someone who was invited to the royal palace, and someone who was regarded as the best Kenpachi up until his death, why couldn't he protect his insides from being destroyed? It's hard to say Unohana would be any different. She couldn't even survive an attack to her throat, and she's known for being a master healer, and she even brought Kenpachi back from death hundreds of times. Regardless how strong she is, I don't think she would survive if Azashiro destroyed every one of her major organs. You could say she can just use Ryatsu to amp her organs, but Ryatsu doesn't amp your organs, only your body, and you would have to prove that it does. It might be headcanon-like to say that only Kenpachi would survive this, like it's only a Kenpachi thing, but it does make sense when you really think about it. When Sion Grants tried to destroy Kenpachi's insides, he says that all of Kenpachi's organs are as hard as steel, so it kinda just makes sense. Hopefully that clears up some of this talk about organs and how vital they really are. Azashiro is a beast and would give the current captains in the story some trouble. I definitely believe he deserves this spot at number 2 on the list. Alright, Kenpachi freaking Zaraki is of course number 1 on this list for numerous reasons. I'm not going to go too in depth on him because he really deserves his own video, but some of the ridiculous things this monster has been seen doing is before he even gets his Shikai. Back in Wako Mundo, he beats the 5th Espada, who has the hardest skin, and then grew so powerful that he could take on and defeat Yami, who was the strongest Espada. Aizen himself later says that during Fate Karakura Town, only 2 people could pose a threat to his plans. That was Head Captain General Yamamoto and Kenpachi Zaraki. He somewhat feared Kenny's fighting strength and his ability to grow extremely more powerful during battle. So because of this, Aizen locked him in Wako Mundo to avoid fighting him. Even Yamamoto after one day stopped training Kenpachi because he thought he would grow too powerful. If you guys remember, Kenpachi always suppresses himself in battle so that he can enjoy fighting longer. He always adjusts his power and spiritual pressure subconsciously to the level of his opponents. Then when he is pushed to the brink of death, he subconsciously unlocks and grows more power. So with him mentally suppressing himself, plus wearing his eye patch that suppresses about 80% of his power, Kenpachi for most of the series was heavily nerfed. In Spirits Are Forever With You, Kenpachi took out Sion Grants, who was said to have as much Ryatsu as 10 Yamis, which is crazy. And by the time of the first invasion and Thousand Year Blood War, he was able to solo 3 Sternritter with ease, while other captains had trouble with just 1. After Unohana helps Kenpachi to unlock his true potential and he achieves his Shikai, he truly becomes worthy of his title of Kenpachi. He also is a special war power solely because of his fighting strength. During Kenpachi's fight with Grimmy, the strongest Sternritter at the time, Grimmy summoned a freaking meteor that was going to destroy the entire Serete, and Kenpachi destroyed the meteor with a single blow from his Shikai Nozarashi. Grimmy even tried to kill Kenpachi by trapping him in the void of outer space, but Kenpachi survived this and actually cut through space itself. Kenpachi wasn't lying when he said he can cut through anything. Shinji, who is quite perceptive, believed that the Soul Society would be finished if Kenpachi died in battle. Kenny was also able to go head to head with Gerard, who is arguably the strongest Sternritter, and Gerard was able to push him to the point where he needed to use his Bankai. Even though Kenpachi lost, he would have killed Gerard if he wasn't immortal. Kenny even told Toshiro that if he didn't hold back his attack, he would have split Toshiro in 2, also suggesting that he could one-shot most of the captains. In Can't Fear Your Own World, he is said to be the strongest Soul Reaper and also one of the few that is stated to be able to take on Hikone. Like I said, I'm not going to go too in detail about his power because he will get his own video, but it's quite obvious he is the strongest Kenpachi in history, and it probably will remain that way for centuries. And he is well deserving of his spot at number 1 on the list. Alright, that's about all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked the video and agreed with my ranking, then please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. If you didn't agree, let me know why in the comment section below. Stay tuned because I have a surprise for everyone when we hit 1,000 subs. Have an awesome day, everybody.